Awesome. All right, we are live here. Hello, Portal to Ascension community. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on wherever you're tuning in. Welcome to this broadcast. My name is Raji from houseofraji.com, and I just joined the PTA team. So excited about this. I am a professional video journalist born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I'm also a spiritual empowerment coach. You may be seeing me a bit more on these broadcasts in the coming months, and I really hope to connect with you more and really just support this beautiful, growing community of ascending souls to the best and highest of my abilities. So thank you for having me, and I'm so honored. Now, Today, we have a very special guest that will be sharing some very important information with us on the subject of the consciousness of abundance. It's going to be extra special because she'll be bringing in info from the higher realms. Now, this is very much a topic in many of our awarenesses right now. So let's pay close attention and please drop your burning questions into the chat and I'll do my very best to get them answered at the end of the presentation. Also, look out for some links in the chat to some amazing free gifts she has. So, Lori Spagna is a best-selling author, spiritual catalyst, intuitive, energy healer, ascension guide, multi-dimensional channel, animal communicator, visionary, light worker, and starseed who radically transformed her life after a series of near-death experiences and the first contact experience while living in Maui. Lori has helped to transform the lives of thousands of humans and animals from around the world via her channeled ascension guidance, intuition, animal communication, energy healing, sacred transmissions, and dormant DNA activations. She leads seminars, workshops, and retreats while she provides ascension training, sacred energy healing transmissions, sacred key code and star code marking activations for humans and animals, and she assists others to awaken their alignment to the true divine source which exists within each of us. All of this in the name of living our best life ever. Yes, I love that. Let's get her in here. Lori, where are you? Yes, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Well, take it away.
Well, that's awesome. All right, well, welcome to the PTA community. I'm really happy that you're here, Raji. So, all right, so let's get started then. So we're going to be talking about ascension as it relates to, or abundance and prosperity as it relates to the ascending community, the awakening community, the lightworker, starseed family, the indigo family tribes, and all beings awakening on earth. And yes, we're going to talk about abundance. We'll bring in some channeled information for everybody. So the first thing, though, before we begin, I just want to start with a couple of brief things to set us up for success. And one of those things is I want for everyone who's listening, whether it's live or in delayed playback, for you to be asking yourself intuitively or just energetically, asking your own higher consciousness what you may perceive or believe to be true about anything related to this topic area of abundance, of wealth, of opulence, of finance, whether it's what you might believe or perceive to be true related to where it comes from, how you create it, who you are if you have it, who you are if you don't have it, or perceive yourself to not have it, how it's generated in your life, and what it says about you and your arena. Because there's a lot of beliefs and belief systems in the spiritual community, especially in the awakening community, that somehow these two topic areas are independent from each other. In other words, you can't really be spiritual and abundant and prosperous, or that somehow these two things don't live in harmony together. And even if that's not necessarily your belief system, whatever your belief system is around money, wealth, materialism, even if it's linked to the current state of the world economy or the global economy, the first most important thing for you to do as an individual is to start to get in touch with what you believe on this topic area. And I'll give you a little hint here, because whatever you believe on this topic area is going to be what's showing up in your reality. you will already be experiencing what you believe. So if you're dealing with coming from a state of or perspective of some kind of lack or limitation, that's going to be what's showing up. And if you're coming from a state of abundance where you have an overflow, that's going to be showing up, and anything in between. So the first thing we want to begin to do is to get in touch with what we believe and perceive about this topic area, and to realize how that is manifesting and materializing already in our physical world. And even if your belief system has something to do with the global economy, and if you perhaps have some kind of belief system that because the global economy or your local economy, your geographical location, your state or government economy, whatever that is related to where you live, your environment, even if you believe that that's a factor, that's still a belief system that's influencing your personal experience. So the first most important thing is for you to start to get clear on what you believe. What do you believe about abundance, about wealth, about prosperity, about finances, about opulence, about elegance? And what do you believe about the people? Because the people who have it and the people who don't. Because again, whatever your beliefs are what will manifest and materialize in your reality. So that's what I want you to start off thinking about at the opening part. And what we're going to do is I'll tell you a little bit about, just a teeny bit about me as you're thinking about this stuff, because we're going to address your questions and even do clearing and healing potentially on some of them, your questions, your comments, your beliefs, and your belief systems. And we're going to bring in channeling information. But right before we do, I just want to give you a little background on me. And you did hear my bio, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But what I do want to say is that when I started my awakening journey, way back in my earliest days, before I had, identified as a light worker or even as a star seed, and before I even had my first contact experience, which for me was just a major energetic upgrade for me, right? When I was taken on ship. Before all of that happened, at that time, before all that, I had a 6-figure credit card debt, and I had been working in corporate America for almost 20 years out of college. And so I generated that credit card debt because I was spending excessively as a way to manage my misery in corporate America. And when I ended up quitting my six-figure job that was generating my 6-figure credit card debt, when I quit that job, it was because I got the divine wake-up call. And my wake-up call happened to be my brother transitioning, who I started getting connections with, in the non-physical. And his message was change your ways. And so when I did that in a very radical way, what ended up happening was I quit everything, and I quit my job, but I still had my 6-figure credit card debt, and I still had my old ways of spending. And for a very short period of time, when I say short, 2 years, wasn't that short, 2 years, I had zero money. I lost everything. I had to somehow make payment energetically for that 6-figure credit card debt. And I had to come back into, balance with regard to the energy exchange. So everything that you're going to be hearing today and receiving, not necessarily channeled when we go into the higher realms channeling part, but it's born from that. So for those 2 years while I lived in Maui, I had nothing. I couldn't pay my bills. I had no credit cards because I ran out. I had the worst, I lost everything. I was rationing my animal companions' food. And I'm starting a business, and I was going through a divorce, and I'm living alone in Maui. And that was one of the most expensive places in the country, in the United States, you can live. So it was a very hard time for me, but I was learning about these kinds of principles that we're about to address today. And what I do want to say is that at the end of those 2 years, based on what I shifted and changed in myself, at the end of those 2 years, the 6-figure credit card debt was gone. And I want to say that some of the way that credit card debt was gone, believe it or not, was forgiveness letters from the banks. I literally got letters of forgiveness from the bank. We forgive this debt. unbelievable. Like, I don't even know how that happens, but it was partly because I was applying some of these principles that I was learning through my own default, like my own survival need, because I could barely survive during those 2 years financially. So I hope that's a helpful way to help you kind of help know where we're going to begin anyway, and where this is coming from. So, okay, with that, let's all start to make a connection in our Sacred Heart Center. And I'll start with a little bit of a prayer, because one of the things that I think is so important, especially even in the Portal to Ascension community, where a lot of our community is around, we talk about ascension. A lot of times we talk about a lot of things related to, stuff that's not necessarily in the mainstream. The answers and the solutions that we seek to everything, the knowledge and the wisdom, the guidance, the healing, whatever it is, that exists in the non-physical, right? So as we're breathing and relaxing into our heart center, whatever we're meant to receive today for our most benevolent best, and for the maximum benefits of everyone participating, will come through the non-physical as we unite and unify through our Sacred Heart Center. So take some breaths. And if you feel comfortable, you can let your eyes close. And we'll just unify through the breath and the breath of love. If you're able to, with the eyes closed, connect through breathing in some love. Every time you breathe in an energy, your body responds to that energy. And of course, one of the purest energies available to us, one of them is love, divine love, primordial love. And the moment we begin to breathe that in, our body starts to go into homeostasis. And for those of you who are sensitive energetically, you can start to feel it. Because as your body responds, you go into the heart center, and a different brainwave starts to get activated. First, initially, an alpha brainwave, right? Where everybody's just calmer. And if we go really deep, if you're willing to go a little deeper with me here, as you're breathing in that love, with your mind's awareness, you can start to trace the love through the brain. Just when I say trace it, feel it and sense it. And then feel it and sense it as it moves through the throat center. Filling up the throat center, exhaling as is comfortable. And then feel it and sense it as it moves into the heart center. Just expanding that love all around you energetically when you exhale. And then feel it and sense it as it moves down into the belly center. Relax and exhale out all around you. And if you'd like to, you can color the love, right? You can color it in your mind's awareness, a breath of color. So you can correspond the color to the chakra center, or you can always breathe rainbow love and rainbow light. And then you travel down to the reproductive, release on the exhale all around. And then the base of the spine, the buttocks, the tailbone. And then when you're ready, you can activate that base chakra center. This is how we open to receive, right? Part of. So you open that by activating it. The way you do that is just release, energetically let go. And drop your next breath of love down through your core pillar, through that base chakra into the earth, Gaia, Sophia. I can feel you and I'm with you guys. So I see and sense and I know you're doing great. Drop all the way down through all the layers of earth into the crystalline core. Now, sometimes I'll tell people here, you don't have to worry about doing it wrong. And the reason I say that is because some people are beginners and they don't always know. But for those of you who really know, of course, you already know you don't have to worry about that. So just breathe down into that central core of Gaia. We connect with the crystalline realm, which has infinite consciousness, Christ avatar self, right? The Christos avatar self consciousness there. And on your next comfortable breath, you feel and sense as that breath of love travels back up in the reverse direction through the buttocks, base of the spine, through the reproductive, up into the solar plexus region, breathing and relaxing into the sacred heart, which is where really your portal, your personal portal to the higher realms is. As the heart chakra center gets really activated and filled with love, it literally opens the door energetically to the higher realms. Let's go a little further. If you're willing to continue with me, just go back up into the throat center. We'll drop down in the heart again. Back up into the throat center, breathing and expanding, then up into the third eye area, right? Reach back to the pineal and the pituitary gland in the center rear of the brain and fill that. This is what decalcifies the third eye and assists and facilitates us in accessing more of our multidimensional awareness. We're all multidimensional beings. And then with your next breath, begin to reach with the breath and the mind's awareness for the top of the crown. Just want you to reach for your brain, the top of your brain underneath the scalp. Many of you are there now. And you know that you're being effective at this because it starts to feel like a kind of enjoyable, comfortable pressure or tingling on the crown. This is your crown, your connection to your kingdom in the higher realms in its own way. And once you're there, just take another breath, this time as if you're on a diving board, diving off and down into your own heart center, your own sacred heart center. So from here, you just breathe in that love and dive down deep into your heart center. There, and you know the feeling, the sensation typically changes because it gets deeper and you get a little more clear about the fact that you're here and yet blissy in the same time. Some form or frequency of that, but your experience will be unique to you. So from this sacred heart center, you're just going to stay there as long and as much as you can. And the reason you want to stay there, even while we're talking, even while there's channeling, is because the more you can linger in the core of your being, which is your sacred heart, the more you're going to naturally unify with your own divinity, with the infinite omnipresent awareness that is you, and with the multidimensional awareness that is infinitely abundant, infinitely resourceful, infinitely wise, infinitely prosperous. And this infinite space that is you is infinitely available to you. The more you can just hang out in your own sacred center, which is where we are now, assuming that you went here with me, which most of you have. And so from this space, we're just going to do a small, short, brief prayer to call in our team that we'll be working with from the higher realms, the non-physical beings, and I'll know exactly and explain who they are. But first we start with the prayer. But for all of you, you just keep dropping into your heart center. In as much as you can, stay here during the duration that we're here together, right? And if you feel like you get a little lost, you take more breaths and you go through that same process we just did, and you drop back down again. And so from here, we call forward our own collective avatar consciousness, the collective consciousness of all beings participating here. And we also, especially above all, call forward the one true divine source of infinite, omnipresent, omnipotent love, infinite, omnipresent, omnipotent awareness to come forward and be with us here and now, and to surround and infuse each and every one of us with the infinite source that we all are. The infinite love, the infinite wisdom, the infinite knowledge, the infinite potential that we are, and the infinite abundance and prosperity which is available to us, infinite wealth, infinite joy. Surround us and infuse us. And ensure that during our time together, everything that is said and done, everything that is shared, healed, transmuted, that is 100%, that it is all 100% of the light. 100% in service and contribution to the light, and 100% in support of the light and our roles in the plan for humanity, in the plan of the light for humanity. Ensure that this is done now. Ensure that anything and everything that does not match or exceed that is cast out from our time together or transmuted into light once again. And we give thanks now. We give thanks to this divine source and to the collective of each and every one of our own eternal ever beings coming forward to share, to teach, to heal, to transmute for the most benevolent best of all, and for the 100% positive upliftment of all. We give thanks for all we are about to receive, and we let it be. Nice, good. Already energy has shifted here. And for those who are super sensitive, you'll notice. And so now from this place, we're going to call forward. We have two especially, lineage of the Melchizedek order stepping forward, who I've been working with. Most of us will identify as members, right, of the Melchizedek order. Of course, we all have avatar consciousness at all frequencies, multi-dimensional frequencies of awareness. We are all there. And so if you're here and you resonate with the Melchizedek order, it's an order of beings who have lived in form and some who have achieved ascended mastery. Many of us are already there, right, in that frequency bandwidth. So that's showing up to speak with us today as a collective. And also we have, of course, the collective of our group, our unique group of avatar consciousness beings. And they'll come after us, what's going on. So we'll start with the Melchizedek order and bring forward some consciousness on wisdom and wisdom regarding abundance and prosperity, wealth, especially for this period of time on earth. Greetings and blessings, beloveds. Let it be known first and foremost, as has been stated, it will be stated again. We are not separate from you. We are part of you and you of us. We are at one with you from the dimensional bandwidth, the frequency of energy which you have called forward. We are all at one here together as a collective group of conscious beings, choosing to awaken and to transform our experience together in the physical realm. This aspect, speaking here now, is a collective of consciousness of beings who identify as part of the Melchizedek order. We, again, are not separate from you. We are one with you. Simply a dimensional frequency of consciousness, which is identified in the non-physical and is meant to be brought into physical at this time and through this particular speaker. Let us begin first and foremost with that which we identify as perhaps the most important message today. And that is to say that all abundance, all wealth, all resource exists within you. All wealth, all abundance, and all resource comes from you and through you. And when we say you, we mean the aspect of you, the consciousness that is at one with the infinite resource you have called forward today, the infinite omnipresent source that is you. It resides within you, and it resides around you when you are identifying solely as human. Nevertheless, it is you. You are it. You are at one with it when you unify with this consciousness, with this awareness, with this bandwidth of energy, with this frequency. You have access to all that is. There is no limitation. The only limitation is that which you have impressed upon yourself through your human interpretation and various identifications of the limited world. Yours now, during an ascension journey, which you are undertaking, for you are here now, is to begin to identify more and more with the universal source that you are part of, that is part of you, that you are. And to begin to disidentify energetically disentangle, in the words of the speaker and many others, to disentangle yourself from the energetics of limitation. And this includes, of course, those parts of yourself that you believe and perceive are limited. Those parts of your reality which have shown you experiences of limitation, particularly as it relates to what you determine to be abundance and prosperity and wealth, financial or otherwise. Now, this is not necessarily a new message, but what is new about it is that you are responsible for the wealth creation of your reality. You are 100% responsible for how wealth and abundance and all its aspects show up in life. You already know well and good that there are multiple, infinite amounts of wealth and abundance. You also know well and good there are infinite ways to measure wealth and abundance. For example, you can be infinitely abundant in joy. You can be infinitely abundant in happiness and well-being. You can be infinitely abundant in love, in various degrees of emotion. You can be infinitely abundant in various degrees of those things you already identify as free, such as your nature experiences in the physical world that cost no form of energetic exchange. You can also be infinitely abundant in those things which are measurable. And those things which are measurable are usually identified in your world as physical things such as forms of money or material possession, some form or another of physical items, gold, silver, precious metals and gems, etc. Even now you have ways to measure this electronically through various types of electronic currencies and digital currencies. These are ways that are indicative of an expanding consciousness. And as you allow yourself to expand into the infinite abundance of all that is, many of which has already been just now identified, you will begin to recognize more of your own infinite nature as it relates to this infinite, unlimited potential which is available to you. Also, which is incredibly important today to say, is that your wealth and your resource and all units of measurement of such are not connected to any individual person. They are also not connected to any individual job. They are also not directly connected to any individual boss or savings plan or bank or any other physical identification in the physical world. Where they are most identified with, most connected to, is you and your connection to the energetic frequency and bandwidth of the infinite wealth and abundance that is available to you. So we'd like you to be disidentifying from any belief systems or energetics that say your money must come through some old paradigm way of identifying. In other words, a 401k or a savings plan or an IRS or a bank or a job or an inheritance. For know this, that which is meant to be yours will be, and that which you create and generate will come to you through joyful, deliberate ways in the future, which have harm to none and which cause pain or suffering to none. While this may not be evident at your current conjecture, when you look in the world and the external reality, you will see many beings still prospering to the pain and suffering, to the harm and detriment of others. It will not take long in your state of reality, only a few short years of linear time, before you begin to realize that that tide turns quickly, and that those who become more and more abundant are those who are serving the greater good of all with harm to none. As you make this energetic shift, you will come to see and come to know that the infinite resource that is within you is yours to generate and has nothing to do with the ties to the external world. We cannot emphasize this enough. We want you to begin to let go of all belief systems that you must find wealth and resource through physicality external to you, and to instead allow that resource to reveal itself to you through the energetic alignment with your source, with the infinite source that is you, and that continually flows through you and is always eternally available to you. Now, with that stated, there are also certain fundamental truths which one must adhere to, one must be aware of when adopting these new ways of being. First and foremost, one which we would state is absolute truth and could be discerned as law, universal law. And that is to say, you get what you give. You will always find that what you receive in any form of abundance is equal to or even greater than that which you have given. And this is important, for it applies to abundance in forms of wealth and receiving good, that which you would identify as good, for we do not necessarily discern between the good and the so-called bad in the same ways you do. However, that which you would see as desirable, it applies just as much to that as it does to forms of lack. So there cannot be stealing in your life, for example, if you are not stealing. There cannot be. The only way there could be is if you are stealing from yourself, perhaps, by overgiving and under-receiving. That is the only exception in that way, of course. But if you are overgiving and under-receiving, this imbalance could be reflected as a form of theft. Nonetheless, you cannot be stolen from if you are not stealing. What you give out will be delivered back to you in equal or greater force. This is universal law, and it will apply going forward. So therefore, if you expect to live as an abundant being, abundantly creating and abundantly receiving, plan on giving abundantly as well. And at the same time, also recognize the energetics of fair exchange. Fair exchange does not require a tit for tat, exact or precise measurement, penny for penny, eye for an eye. No. Fair exchange requires an energetic flow, a fairly giving and receiving without necessarily monetizing or materializing penny to penny. It is an energetic of flow. And this also is part of universal law. Fair balance, fair reciprocity, fair exchange. Fair is not to be defined by human interpretation of what fair is. Fair is a measurement of flow and equanimity, where it feels good, right, and appropriate in all directions. As you become more and more energetically attuned to this energy, you will come to know that fair feels good. Fair feels right. It feels good to give, and it feels good to receive. It feels good to fairly honor and exchange. And as you recognize and honor this energetic, you will also begin to experience more and more abundance and prosperity of all degrees in your life and in your physical experience. Also know that as these changes and shifts are made, nonetheless, as always, it will also affect the greater good of all beings around you in the collective at large, which is the overall energetic agreement that those who are in light worker communities, indigo family tribe communities, and others as such.
Call from shift caller.
Sorry, distraction. I'm gonna just make a correction here. Sorry. Okay, I just say the good news about my channeling is that it's just a frequency connection, right? I can come in and out. I'm not bringing someone into my body, so I just need to reconnect. Apologies. I'm here and we're back with you. Good. As we were saying, the more and more, the key awareness for those of you who identify as members of Indigo family tribe, various groups on earth who are here to anchor in higher consciousness, to anchor in pure frequencies of love, of light, of higher consciousness, etc., which this group is part of. As you do so, this will expand into your physical world and benefit the greater good of all. And this is part of what you are here to do. Now, we will address a few other concerns, for we are aware that they are here. And before we do, we would like to add one more piece, which need not be stated, however, is certainly worth stating again. And that is the energetic of gratitude. For we know you are all well aware of the significance of gratitude. Gratitude for what you have, gratitude for what you receive, and gratitude for what others do in service and contribution. Gratitude to what you do yourself in service and contribution. Self-acknowledgement through gratitude is also part of that. For this always amplifies anything that you are desiring more of. The moment you become grateful, it could be easily said that gratitude is the energetic vibration that amplifies, that intensifies any form of abundance, wealth, prosperity, opulence, etc. Even gratitude towards a shadow aspect could potentially enhance that as well. There is no wrongness to this. It is simply the awareness of how the energetic of gratitude works. Now, with that said, we will address those questions that many of you have and have had, especially regarding your physical earthly world and the future of energetics on your earth, financial systems, etc. First, we would like you to know that you have already been living through some of the most challenging financial times you've ever experienced, while your collective is not necessarily as a collective experiencing lack. Of course, there is great lack going on your planet in various locations and in various communities around your planet. These perspectives in lack and limitation are consciousness traps. We would call them consciousness traps, for the beings involved in them are unaware, for the most part, that they are participating in the experiences of lack. Some are, of course, but not all, especially in particular geographic areas of the world where there is great lack. Some of those areas you know well. Certain parts of India, certain parts of Africa, etc. They need not be named necessarily, but what is important to say is that these energetics can and will shift as consciousness does. For consciousness is the driving force of every experience in the physical world. Consciousness is the causal effect that you experience, that anyone experiences in the physical world. Please understand this. So when we say that you are experiencing now on Earth some of the most challenging parts, it is not because the whole of your collective is in lack, for many are in extreme abundance, more than they have perhaps ever experienced before. And this experience is enjoyable. What is so challenging is the extreme polarity between the two, and that both are simultaneously existing in your physical world, and that this seems absurd to so many, and so many are waiting from their own unconscious perspectives for the next so-called shoe to drop. As they await the next shoe to drop, they sit, fingers, nails biting, anxiety, full of anxiety, fear, preparing for the next worst thing to happen in the financial markets. And we will say to you, this will not be so. Why? Because too many are awakening to their infinite resource, to their infinite supply, to the joy of being prosperous in abundance. Everyday people on all levels and all scopes. And because of this consciousness shift, there will be no shoe dropping. Not for the collective, we say, at least not right now. You are not ready for this. And by the time the so-called shoe could or would drop, there will be enough consciousness shifting on earth that it will be a matter of choosing to liberate the collective out of the experience of the need for a monetary system such as the one you have now. So what we are saying here in an elaborate way, but we hope a very clear way, is that you have nothing to fear about the so-called next shoe dropping. That is not what is slated for your earth, your humanity, and that is not part of the agenda of the light. The agenda of the light is to awaken each and every one of you in the most accelerated way possible, in the most expedient way possible, for the most benevolent best of all, and ideally with the least amount of pain and suffering. And yet we are aware, very well aware, that sometimes what catalyzes the most number of awakening, the most amount of awakening, the largest degree of shifting, sometimes does include large collectives experiencing some degree of suffering. For this, we are especially sorry, for we also know that it is not required, but in your current state of collective consciousness, it sometimes is the case. Nonetheless, and certainly has been the case, nonetheless, we want you to be aware that there is nothing to be afraid of at this time of your financial world collapsing or causing you some sort of unexpected upset, for so many beings are awakening and making the shift as we are speaking of here now, what we are referring to during this time together, that this has shifted the energetics for your collective. And now what is required is that your collective become more abundant in the sharing, the giving, and the choice to not benefit to the harm of another. As that shift is made, the world finances will also shift in a similar direction. So we'd like to alleviate your fears, and that is what we are attempting to do here. We would also like to add a bit more. And that is to say that your job in terms of living abundantly, prosperously, through all the various ways of experiencing abundance and prosperity and opulence, etc., is to begin to search within yourself who you must be energetically and vibrationally, and what you must believe. We have identified some of that today. And how you must express yourself, who you must be to experience the type of wealth and abundance that you would like to experience. You must become that from within yourself first. You must emit that vibrationally into the external world around you so that it can resonate through your field, your multidimensional field, your energetics around you, and so that then it can reflect back at you. There is nothing to wait for in the external world. The energetic changes must happen from within. Now, with that said, we will give you what we would perceive to be some simple guidelines that you can begin with right now, which will begin to help you make this change. First and foremost, begin to recognize the joy of having that which you want more of, and enjoy having whatever you have. So if it is $1 and you would like $1 million, be grateful and enjoy the dollar, having it, not spending it, having it. And if it is $1 that you have and you would like to make $1 million, for example, using this as an example, be sure to give at least a tithe to the world at large, to the greater good. A tithe equals at least 10%. In this example, 10% of a dollar would be 10 cents. We are simply using this as an example. As you give out, you will receive equal to or greater than that which you give. So be sure to tithe that which you have, 10% to give out. That is what a tithe is. And the giving out shall always be to that which represents itself as the divine. However, the divine reveals itself to you. And you may use another word. You may use God. You may use the word source. You may use the word joy. You may use the word love. It matters not. It simply matters that you begin to practice and apply this. So practice and apply. Feeling grateful for what you already have, that you want more of. Practice and apply having what you already have and that which you want more of. And practice giving a tithe of that which you already have and that which you want more of. We would also suggest two other parts which have not been identified, two other pieces to this, which have not been identified but are equally important. And that is to recognize and acknowledge the joy of forgiving, freeing, and releasing. When one forgives, frees, and releases anything that is keeping them in a state of lack or limitation, including any form of debt or obligation or entitlement, or even the expectation that someone or something owes them and or has wronged them, the releasing of that is a liberation of oneself that frees oneself up to receive what you are meant to receive through an appropriate channel. So, for example, perhaps someone in your past has taken, let's say, just for this example, a certain amount of money, perhaps $1,000, let's say. And you believe they owe you that $1,000, and perhaps you want to take them to court or have some other similar type of experience where they pay you back what they owe you. Perhaps what they are truly there to teach you is some new form of abundance or fair reciprocity or something or other for which you are entangled in the experience and cannot see or receive or reap the gifts. But through the experience of liberating yourself and forgiving the other and releasing the debt, that which is meant to be yours, if it is indeed the $1,000, will come to you in equal or greater force through a more joyful flow, a more joyful alignment with and through a funnel where it is meant to. So learn the joy of liberation from anything that has kept you in a form of density or stuckness, whether it is a form of debt, obligation, resentment, attachment to another, owing you something, or a debt or an entitlement, whatever it is. Find your way to liberating yourself, not because the other is okay or justified in their actions, but because you know that your source and supply will come through some better channel that is more divinely aligned and appropriate for you. This is an important part of living in abundance, and all beings are tested on this in some way or another, not because there are tests needed, but simply because your old paradigm created those situations and circumstances, and you may have been entangled in them in some way or another. Most beings have. And so the test is not a test, but rather an opportunity to free yourself from something that kept you entangled in the past. We hope this has been helpful, and for now, we will step aside as we have completed that which we were meant to bring forward for today. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick check-in on my time here. Oh my, okay, I've gone over my time. So I'm going to, I have more I could do, but I'm going to pause because I just checked in on time. Raji, how are we doing?
Hey, wow, what a transmission. Ooh, look at all the notes that I took.
That makes me happy.
Yes.
Good.
Well, I was putting some of your links in the YouTube. Well, first, I mean, yeah, we're a little over time, but like, is there something like really burning that you want to share? Like, please keep going if you feel.
No, I mean, I would love to. What I wanted to do, what I was hoping and planning on doing, I get lost in no time. Like I'm in no time in that zone, you know? So I thought like 20 minutes had gone by. I really
No.
didn't
Well, I have a
realize
couple
how long
questions.
that was going on for. So, and then, you know, these beings don't measure them. They don't measure time. They just have a message they want to bring through. It happens all the time. So I get it.
Right.
But no, my thing was that I did want to do some healing for people if they had the chance to, you know, ask anything, or I don't know how much, if we can do that now, but anyway, well, you know, if people ask questions, because sometimes it's just an energetic clearing. That can be so simple, or a download, right? And what is a download? It's just coming from a higher, pure frequency of consciousness that we're aligned with, but in our human identity in that moment, we're not, right? So that's what I mean by healing. It's just bringing us into alignment. So, yeah, I mean, for me, my part is more like, what does everybody want, need, and desire?
Well, I was monitoring the chat on YouTube here, and people were really excited by what you were sharing. I didn't really catch any questions, but I have some questions, if that's okay.
Okay.
We
might not have even told them they could ask questions, but for sure, definitely.
Yeah. So
in that direction.
So Lori, what is the best and fastest way to tap into the infinite abundance that is present in every single moment?
Okay, so I would go back. Now my human self is wanting to answer the question, but I could even let that come through. Okay, I'll let it come through. Melchizedek order coming back and coming through again. We would invite you, we would invite each and every one of you to begin to feel and experience yourselves more frequently as beings embodying through the heart center, as living from the heart center. One simple practice that everyone can easily start, in addition to the opening part of the meditation of today's call, would be to simply practice breathing through your heart center. Most people, of course, would object to this idea at all, thinking it is impossible to breathe through the heart center. But we would say that your consciousness can absolutely breathe through the heart center. And when you get very good at this, after much practice, you will find it quite easily, initially, it quite easily activates your energetic field. It will be quite easy for you after attempting. Initially, it may seem more challenging. Some of you are doing it now already, and this is good. The more you are in your heart center, the more you are opening up your infinite resource and your infinite connection to infinite supply. Remember, your infinite supply is the source that you are, and the source that you are infinitely connected to, that is ultimately you, that is running and embodying you, and that you are part of. All is true. All are one with this source.
Thank you. Wow. One of my favorite parts of the transmission was the part about fairness. And it's almost like it resonated so strongly with me, and it was like such a deep remembrance, and how fairness is connected to the appropriate feeling of rightness and goodness and the give and receiving. Like, wow, I really appreciated that, because so often we're always like, this is not fair, life's not fair and stuff. And it's like, whoa, let's step back and like look at and feel what is this energy of fairness. So I really enjoyed that part, and the whole.
I love that too. Can I say, because I have also felt that way. Like I've known in my journey that I have known my truth. I know this about me, that I am in service to the light. I know that not all people are, but that is my truth. And I know that I've been living to the best of my ability by my highest integrity.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes have felt like this isn't fair. Like, well, I'm living my truth. I'm like doing source work. I'm in service. Like, why is this happening? Like,
Right. Yes.
and I have struggled with that too, but I really get it that struggle is an energetic entanglement that keeps us out of that. Every time we're energetically entangled with any form of struggle, resistance, like it's an entanglement that basically drops our frequency.
Yeah.
And so the idea of liberating ourselves is what rises us up into the flow of like, oh, this is fair. This feels so good.
Right.
Right. So much more real.
So in your own life, Lori, how do you, when you sense, crap, I'm like resisting right now, how do you release, or how do you surrender, or how do you let go?
I literally, in the earlier days, I was literally, so true. You literally first has come through your awareness, like, oh, this is an energetic. I release, I let go, I breathe in through my heart center, and let go, and know whatever I need will come through my connection with source. And this person or this conversation or this whatever is not my source.
Right.
My comes through this infinite love that I can breathe in through my embodiment and connect with through my embodiment.
So you identify.
It's all energetics. And sorry, go ahead.
No. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So you identify your source. You identify your divinity as your source. Is that correct?
Yes. And I, as we all are, we are all one with that source. As we allow ourselves to be one, as we do this energetic work, right? The energetic work is the inner excavation of all those ways we identify as separate from that source.
Right.
And sometimes we can call that false gods or false sky gods, like some Santa Claus in the sky.
Yep.
All that is just separateness. That source is within us, and it's all energetic, right? It's not just within us.
Yeah.
It's all that is.
Thank you.
Speaking of
within us, I have a quick question about channeling, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, the feeling is different when you bring in beings into your body versus tapping into the frequency. So what is the difference?
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Nobody comes into my body. I'm not that kind. I don't like that kind of channeling. That's very old school. Yeah. Very old school. And sometimes they call it trance channeling.
Right.
So in those cases, somebody is relinquishing their vehicle, control over their vehicle, which means they can get entities, they can get, whatever else. They can get fooled, false lights, they can be fooled. Sometimes they think they're channeling. Sometimes it's just an egoic, interpretation or. Yeah. No. What I do is I go into my sacred heart, where I know I'm at one with all that is. And then I begin to energetically vibrate. I call forward who's meant to come forward, and I become one with them. I'm just vibrating because I'm in that collective. I'm at one with them, just as we all are.
Yeah.
You exist. We all exist at all frequencies and bandwidths. So anything that in consciousness that exists out there, whether it's I've channeled the consciousnesses of hurricanes, of storms, of geographical locations. I've channeled the consciousness of COVID. I've channeled the consciousness of the vaccine, right? So anytime you want to access information or energy, you can unify with that consciousness, as long as you can unify at a vibrational bandwidth where it exists. And that doesn't mean it's coming into my body as a physical form. It means my awareness becomes one.
So you're just catching the frequency, the wavelength that it's vibrating on. And as infinite beings, as powerful beings, we have that ability. That feels and sounds so empowering to me. And I hope it sounds empowering to other people, because we truly are powerful, and we can't, have reign over our reality.
Yes.
No?
Yes. I'll say one other thing about that channeling thing too, is that years and years and years ago, I had this being who used to come around me my very early days, and he just there's a non-physical being, and he'd flutter by, and it would be like this fluttering of yellow light. And at the same time I would hear, "I am Bartholomew." And I'd be like, Okay, great. What are you here for? What do you want?
Yeah.
Nothing. I am Bartholomew, and then gone. And I used to get really annoyed. I'd be like, look, stop coming around if you're not going to tell me what you're here for.
Right.
Like, I don't understand. What's the purpose? What's the point? Like, but I started to realize that this being was teaching me about the subtlety of one unique vibration. One unique light, one unique being. That was his whole job. There was nothing else.
Cool. Wow.
And so as I worked with that, I started to become more and more aware. Everything has a vibration. All vibration has a sensation. All sensation has that frequency. So that's how I started to learn we use the word channeling because that's what humans identify. But for me, I was never, from the onset, I used to get invitations like, can we come in your body and talk? And I'd be like, no, not interested. This is not my thing.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I was super curious when the phone rang and, you came. And so I was like, oh, interesting. Two different. Yes, because I have my own, like my guides and I call them, we're a group. I'm number 7. There's 6 of us. And,
that's cool. Very cool.
And I counsel with them all the time. And it's like, when I was first starting out, I was afraid. It's freaky a little bit, like allowing non-physical beings closer and closer and closer, but it's all love. And the first time that I allowed my consciousness to meet their consciousness, it was an overwhelming sense of unconditional love. And like these guys, like, whoa, it's like family right from the get-go. And since I was a baby, they've had my back, and it's like, wow, it's so beautiful. So I super appreciate that.
Good for you. Awesome.
Let's see what else. There is abundance as birthright. What do you think about that?
I 100% agree with it. Abundance is our birthright. The only thing is that our human identification, our human identity has to unpack that in a way that is what I would say is divinely aligned. Because this concept of abundance is our birthright, it's totally true. We are infinitely abundant. We're part of this source. We're not only is abundance our birthright, worthiness is our birthright. We are worthy because we exist.
Yes.
We are valuable because we exist. So like abundance, what didn't come through today that I'm actually just being reminded of is that like a lot of times our abundance is linked to our own sense of worth and value. Absolutely. And personal worth and value. And we're worthy and deserving and valuable because we exist.
Yes.
That's our birthright, because we were created by a loving creator that created an experience for humanity, created an experience for itself, basically, God's playground, to have like this game of duality, shadow and light, lack, limitation, abundance. So we're part of that, but it is our birthright, and we're worthy and deserving because we exist, because we were created by this divine source that is absolute love ultimately, as we remember and reclaim that. But if we're functioning from this, well, I'm worthy and deserving of everything, so I'll just steal something, that's not the same thing, right?
No.
I think we all know in this call, like, I think we understand the difference about that. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Lori, those are all the questions that I had for you. Can you let us know one more time, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, they can go to my website at lorispagna.com. I know, did you put in the free gifts one? Because there's one there for an abundance, like what lorispagna.com/free gifts/ what was the abundance one?
The abundance one was, standby, I have it here. The abundance one is lorispagna.com free gifts /wealth.
Yeah, so there's a really fun abundance prayer that really works. It's really good. And then there's the DNA activations, which is lorispagna.com /free gifts /DNA. So you can get, because all this stuff is in our DNA. All this stuff is stored up in there. So we gotta really be activating the DNA.
Do you have any courses or workshops or anything coming up?
The next workshop is the DNA activation, which is on 6/6, which is a 6/6 portal. I hope people don't get the wrong, like people believe that that's a little brainwashing, right? That somehow that's like a devil thing or something. But really what it is in numerology, 6 is the bridge to joy, to heaven, to the higher realms. So we have a DNA activation that day. And then I have a retreat coming up in Mount Shasta, actually. So I'm really excited about that in July.
Awesome.
Yeah, they can find me on the website at lorispagna.com. They can get some of those great free gifts. And of course, I'm on YouTube also. On my YouTube channel at Lori Spagna. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Lori, for sharing. And this was so much fun. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in right now. Check out Portal to Ascension. We have lots more content coming up. Thank you again for watching. I'm Raji, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.